The PowerPoint I'm going to demo for you guys today is going to be the one for lesson 10A, add and subtract polynomials of degree 1 and degree 2. All of our PowerPoints start with a do now. The do now will either be a review of a prerequisite skill that is necessary for that day's lesson, or it'll be an introduction of a new skill that's still low level enough that all the kids can do it, and it'll have an example next to it, as is the case on this slide here. So for this do now, students are given a polynomial 8x squared minus 3x plus 7, and they're asked 5 questions. In my class with my do nows, kids receive a piece of paper as they come in, and I take them up every day for a grade just to kind of make sure they're in class on time. That's optional though. Regardless, when you're ready to review, all you have to do is click and the answer is going to pop up. So number 1, the variable is x. Number 2, the exponent is 2. Number 3, the coefficients are 8 and -3. Number 4, the constant is 7. And number 5, this expression has 3 terms. Right now would be a good moment to make sure kids understand that when there is a minus sign in front of a term, that term is negative. Some PowerPoints are going to have a vocabulary slide. This is usually for the lessons at the start of a unit. So for this lesson, the vocabulary words are as follows. You can either have kids write them down from the PowerPoint, or you can provide them with some kind of guided notes where they fill in the blank. Variable, a letter that represents an unknown. Coefficient, a number in front of a variable. Exponent tells you how many times to multiply the base by itself, written as a small number above and to the right of the base. Constant, a term with no variable. Terms, a part of an expression separated by a plus or a minus. And last but not least, polynomial, an algebraic expression with 2 or more terms. The vocabulary is scaffolded and it will build on each other. Some PowerPoints will also have a things to remember slide, and the things that I've chosen for my students to remember are: first, identify like terms and combine them. Like terms must have the same variable and the same exponent. Always add the coefficients, write plus for positive and minus for negative answers. That third one, always add the coefficients. That's a matter of personal preference, but I think that's the best way to teach it. And you'll see why later on in this demo. So the examples are going to start very low level, low rigor, and they're going to work their way up to be more like the problems that are on grade level. For this first problem, we have a bunch of terms just scattered out on this slide, and we're going to ask students to combine them, identify which ones are alike, and combine them. So first, a circle is going to pop up around 3x. Ask your students what looks like 3x. If they remember from the things to remember slide, what has the same variable, that's going to be the 4x and the x. Now is a good time to make sure they understand that if there is no number, no coefficient in front of the variable, there is in fact an imaginary one, and that is the number 1. So we're going to combine, which means add, all of the coefficients, 3 plus 4 plus 1, and that gives us 8. Then you just bring down the x, 8x. Now, to keep things going in alphabetical order, we move on to the y. We have 2y and 4y. Combine 2 and 4, and that gives us 6. Bring down the y. Lastly, our constants, 11, 5, and 9. Again, constants in the vocabulary we learned were terms that have no variable. Add these all up, and we get 25. So our final answer is 8x plus 6y plus 25. Stress to students that it has to remain in this form. Nothing can be combined because nothing at this final step has the same variable. Now we're going to move on to problems that have the negatives. Negative 2x, what looks like negative 2x, what has the same variable? That's going to be the 4x and the negative 6x. Combine all those coefficients, negative 2 plus 4 plus negative 6. Now, this is why I have my students always add. First of all, in middle school, when they're starting pre-algebra and they're learning how to translate word problems into algebraic equations and expressions, they're kind of taught to look for keywords. Combine is a keyword for addition. So if you want to scaffold on that, build on that, you want to keep that consistent. Also, sometimes I've noticed the first few years I taught Algebra 1 that when they're dealing with negatives, they sometimes want to subtract negative, which, technically makes something positive. So to eliminate any of that confusion, when we combine, we add, and we just simply add what's there. So -2 plus 4 plus -6, and that's going to give us -4. No way around it if you do it that way. And then bring over the x. Now we're going to move on to the y's, 5y, -y, and 7y. Again, put that 1 in front of that y that has no coefficient, no numerical coefficient. And we get 5 plus -1 plus 7, and that is positive 11. They put plus 11 because it's positive. Bring over the y. And lastly, our constants, -3 and 2. Add those together, and we get -1. Our final answer here is -4x plus 11y minus 1. Now we're going to move on to problems that have positives and negatives, but also different exponents. So more so on grade level than we were before. We're going to start with x squared. Remember to draw your kids' attention to the fact that we learned that to be a like term, they have to have not only the same variable, but the same exponent as well. So if that being said, we're going to skip over the -8x, that doesn't have an exponent, and we're going to actually combine this with -5x squared and -2x squared. Again, we need that 1 in front of the x. So we have now 1 plus -5 plus -2, and that gives us a -6. Bring over the x squared. Now we move on to terms that have no exponent. That's going to be our -8x. We're going to combine that with 4x and with 2x. Combine the coefficients, -8 plus 4 plus 2 gives us -2, and bring over your x. Lastly, the constants, -7, +10, combine those, and we get +3. There's our final answer. Now we're moving on to the grade level problems. This is the format they're going to be written in when they're on the star, but even though there's parentheses there, kids just don't know what to do. Circle the 4x squared, that gets combined with the 3x squared. 4 plus 3 is 7, bring over the x squared. Now we're moving on to the single variables. We have the plus x, we have the -5x. Put the 1 in front of the x. 1 plus -5 is -4, bring over the x. And then lastly, our constants, -9 plus 1, and that gives me a -8. Final answer is 7x squared minus 4x minus 8. Again, if you have to draw their attention to the fact that you cannot combine the 7 with the -4 because they don't have the same exponent, then you have to do so. But again, they have the same variable, and that's kind of confusing for kids. So again, stress that they have to have not just the same variable, but also the same exponent. Last example, this one has a minus in the middle. So that's going to pop up to draw their attention to that because it's a special circumstance. When you have a minus in the middle, you have to change everything after the minus to the opposite. If they've already learned distributive property, you can kind of reference that and say that basically you're distributing a -1 to every term inside that second set of parentheses. So here, originally that 5 is positive. It's going to change to -5x squared. Here, the 3 is negative, so now it's going to change to a plus 3x. And here, this 3 is positive, so it's going to change to a -3. Everything after the negative changes to the opposite. If it's positive, it goes to negative. If it's negative, it goes to positive. Simple as that. Cross it out, that's gone. Now the front stays the same. There was nothing in front of that parentheses to change anything going on right there. So we simply bring it down, unchanged, x squared plus x minus 9. And then now we can combine like terms just like we've been doing. X squared combines with -5x squared, and it gives us a -4x squared. We're going to combine the plus x with the plus 3x, and that is going to give us a positive 4x. And the constants at the end, -9 and -3, combine those. Again, notice I put plus -3. Combine means to add, always have them add, so that way they don't put that double negative. And that gives us -12. So the final answer here is -4x squared plus 4x minus 12. As you can see, our PowerPoints are very nicely colored. Everything is color coded so kids can follow along easily with you. You also saw that everything popped up, all the animations popped up at the click of a button. There's absolutely no need for me to go to the whiteboard unless I want to or unless I choose to send my kids to the whiteboard. And last but not least, everything is perfectly scaffolded. We started with something very low level, the do now, something, to remediate or something that they can kind of learn on their own. We moved on to something a little more difficult, but all the positives. Then we threw in the negatives. Then we threw in the exponents. And then we changed the format completely so that kids can use what they just learned to tackle problems that are aligned to the grade level standard. All our PowerPoints are like this. If you like this PowerPoint, you can download it for free on our website or through Teachers Pay Teachers. And if you want more PowerPoints like this, feel free to shop with us. Thanks for watching.